68% of Americans in their 50s have less than $250,000 saved for retirement. And most of them are about to make a decision in the next 10 years that will quietly cost them another $250,000 on top of that. It's not picking the wrong stock. It's not missing the next big thing. It's a trap so well disguised that financial advisors sometimes walk their own clients straight into it. Because on paper, it looks responsible, it looks safe, it looks like exactly what a smart 50-something is supposed to do. I'm Joe, and on this channel, I break down the money stuff nobody explained to you. Today, we're talking about the retirement trap that springs shut sometime between age 50 and 62, and how to see it coming before it costs you a decade of compounding. Let's start with the data, because this isn't a feeling, this is measurable. Vanguard publishes a report every year called How America Saves. The most recent edition shows that the median 401k balance for Americans aged 55 to 64 is about $87,000. The average is higher, around $244,000. But averages are misleading because a few people with massive balances drag the number up. The median is what the typical person actually has. Now stop and think about that. The typical American 5 to 10 years from retirement has $87,000. If you follow the standard 4% withdrawal rule, $87,000 generates about $3,500 a year in retirement income. That's $290 a month. On top of an average Social Security check of around $1,900. So the math problem is already brutal. But here's where the trap comes in. When people in their 50s realize they're behind, they don't usually respond by taking more risk to catch up. They do the opposite. They get scared. And being scared, they start moving money toward what feels safe. Bonds, money market funds, stable value funds inside their 401k, CDs at the bank. A study from the Employee Benefit Research Institute found that the average equity allocation drops from around 75% at age 45 to under 50% by age 60. For people who feel behind, that drop happens faster and steeper. They de-risk exactly when they need growth the most. And here's the pattern. Interrupt, I want you to sit with for a second. Ask yourself this. If you had 10 years left to fix a problem, would you choose the slowest possible tool to fix it? Because that's what this is. Moving heavily into bonds at 53 when you're already underfunded is like realizing you're late for a flight and deciding to walk to the airport. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact 3-step framework to fix this without gambling your savings on meme stocks or crypto. But first, you have to understand why your brain pulls you into the trap in the first place. Because if you don't understand the mechanism, you'll fall right back in. Here's where it gets interesting from a psychology standpoint. In 1979, two researchers named Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky published a paper called Prospect Theory. Kahneman later won the Nobel Prize for this work. And the core finding was something they called loss aversion. In simple terms, the pain of losing $100 is roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining $100. Not equal, twice as bad. So when your brain weighs a financial decision, losses get double counted compared to gains. Now apply that to a 53-year-old looking at their 401k statement during a rough market. The portfolio is down 15%. That's not just a 15% loss in their head. Emotionally, it feels like a 30% loss. And every news headline is screaming recession, crash, bubble. So they do what feels obvious. They sell stocks. They move to bonds. They protect what they have left. The problem is that this exact behavior, repeated by millions of people, is what destroys retirement outcomes. There's a firm called Dalbar that has been tracking investor behavior for over 30 years. Their annual report called the Quantitative Analysis of Investor Behavior consistently finds the same thing. The average stock fund investor underperforms the actual stock fund they're invested in by 3 to 4% per year. Why? Because they sell during downturns and buy back in after recoveries. They lock in losses and miss rebounds. 3 to 4% a year doesn't sound like much. But on a $200,000 portfolio over 15 years, the difference between earning 7% and earning 4% is about $190,000. That's a house. That's 5 years of retirement income. Gone, just from emotional timing. So why does this hit people in their 50s harder than anyone else? Because of something behavioral economists call the shrinking time horizon effect. When you're 30, A market drop feels survivable. You have decades. When you're 55, every dollar feels irreplaceable because you can't picture yourself earning it back. The runway feels short. So loss aversion gets amplified by urgency, and urgency makes you defensive at exactly the wrong moment. There's another layer to this, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. It's called sequence of returns risk. Research from Pfau, a professor at the American College of Financial Services, shows that the 5 years before retirement and the 5 years after retirement are disproportionately important. A bad market in those 10 years can permanently damage your portfolio in a way that the same bad market at age 40 would not. So here's the cruel irony. The decade where the math matters most, the decade where every decision compounds the hardest, is the exact decade where your brain is most likely to push you into the wrong move. You're being attacked from two sides. The math is unforgiving, and your psychology is sabotaging you. So far, you've seen the data on how underfunded most 50-somethings are, and you've seen why your brain pushes you toward the worst possible behavior right when it matters most. But here's the part most people never figure out. There's a specific, repeatable framework that fixes this, and it doesn't require you to become a stock-picking genius or take wild risks. It just requires you to make 4 decisions in the right order at the right time. Step 1. Recalculate your actual number. Not your dream number, your actual number. Most people in their 50s have never sat down and figured out what they truly need. They have a vague feeling that $1 million sounds right, but $1 million is a meme, not a plan. Here's the simple version. Take your current annual spending. Subtract whatever Social Security and pensions you'll receive. Multiply what's left by 25. That's your target portfolio. So if you spend $60,000 a year and you'll get $24,000 from Social Security, you need $36,000 from your portfolio. Times 25, that's $900,000. Not $1 million, not $2 million, $900,000. And if your spending is lower, your number is lower. I've seen people discover their real number is $600,000 when they thought it was $2 million. That changes everything about how you feel and how you invest. Step 2. Maximize the catch-up contributions. The IRS allows people 50 and older to contribute extra to retirement accounts. In 2024, the standard 401k limit is $23,000, but if you're 50 or over, you can add another $7,500. That's $30,500 a year. For IRAs, you can do $8,000 instead of $7,000. And starting in 2025, thanks to the Secure 2.0 Act, people aged 60 to 63 get an even bigger catch-up, up to $11,250 extra in their 401k. This is one of the most underused provisions in the entire tax code. If you maxed catch-up contributions for 10 years and earned 7%, you'd add over $420,000 to your retirement, legally, with tax advantages. Step 3. Stop de-risking on autopilot. This is the big one. You've heard the rule, subtract your age from 100 to get your stock allocation. So at 60, you'd be at 40% stocks. That rule was invented when people died at 72 and bonds yielded 8%. It's outdated. Modern research, including work by Michael Kitces and Pfau, suggests something called a rising equity glide path. You actually start retirement with a lower stock allocation, say 50%, and gradually increase it back to 60 or 70% over the first decade of retirement. Why? Because it protects you from sequence of returns risk early and lets you capture growth later when your portfolio has stabilized. You don't have to do this perfectly, but the takeaway is simple. Don't let fear push you below 50% stocks in your 50s. If anything, in your early 50s, you probably want to stay around 70% stocks, then gently step down as you approach the actual retirement date. Step 4. Delay Social Security if you possibly can. Every year you delay claiming between age 62 and 70, your benefit grows by roughly 7 to 8%. Guaranteed. There is no investment on earth that pays you a guaranteed 7 to 8% return for waiting. A study from the National Bureau of Economic Research by economists including Olivia Mitchell estimated that the average household leaves about $182,000 on the table by claiming Social Security too early. Almost nobody factors this in. I'm not saying everyone should wait until 70. If you have health issues or no other savings, claiming earlier might be right. But if you can bridge those years with part-time work or modest withdrawals from your portfolio, delaying is one of the highest return decisions in personal finance. Period. So those are the 4 moves. Recalculate your real number. Max the catch-up contributions. Don't over-de-risk. Delay Social Security as long as you reasonably can. Do those 4 things in that order, and you don't need to win the lottery or pick the next NVIDIA. Let me bring this full circle. The trap isn't really about money. It's about timing. It's about the gap between what your brain wants to do at age 55, which is play defense, and what the math actually requires you to do, which is play smart, structured offense for 1 more decade. The data shows that most Americans in their 50s have less than they need. The psychology shows that loss aversion and shrinking time horizons push people toward the safest possible options at the worst possible moment. And the solution is not complicated. It's not exotic. It's 4 boring, specific, repeatable decisions. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. The decade between 50 and 60 is the most important decade of your financial life. Not because you can fix everything in 10 years, but because almost everyone uses those 10 years wrong. They de-risk too early. They underfund their catch-up contributions. They claim Social Security at 62 out of fear, and they never actually calculate what they need. You don't have to be one of those people. The same 10 years that traps most Americans can completely transform your retirement if you spend them building instead of bracing. If this video helped you see something you didn't see before, hit subscribe. I publish breakdowns like this every week, and the next one is on the 3 biggest tax mistakes retirees make in their first year of retirement. You won't want to miss it. I'm Joe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.